Hey everybody, it's Jason Blaha here, and today I want to talk to you guys a little bit about one of my favorite tricep exercises that I program a lot of different ways for myself, for different clients, and that is the JM press. And I want to note here, there are a lot of different ways to do this. Obviously, J.M. Blakely has his own way that he teaches, and I think that's a fantastic starting point, but a lot of very successful elite benchers actually use a lot more range of motion as far as dipping the elbows, other stuff, and go really heavy on it. And I'm going to say kind of what J.M. Blakely says in his videos on it. When he's done, he's like, look, even if you do it wrong, meaning different than he prescribes, he's like, it's still pretty darn effective, right? And that's even from the man himself, and he said that. So why do I like the JM press? Considering I prescribe a lot of different tricep stuff, people have seen me prescribe close grip work, different types of extensions. I'm a big fan of skull crushers. I'm a big fan of band work. And I think people who watch my channel, watch client log and stuff, realize I prescribe those things pretty often. In skull crushers with both easy bars and with dumbbells, right? These are things that I prescribe regularly. But when it comes to building bench press strength, particularly the top half of the bench, the lockout of the bench, the JM press is probably my biggest go-to exercise. It is the one I am most likely to prescribe for lifters for that purpose. And I like things like skull crushers for general tricep building. I like tendons for tendon health, or high rep bands for tendon health. These are things that I like, right? I like all of these things, but I don't think those are always the best tool for improving a bench press lockout. Now, bands can help there a lot, but my favorite tool is the JM press, and the reason for it is not just about the hypertrophy, it is about the movement pattern carryover. Meaning, we could talk about overall tricep development and how some of that affects the bottom of the bench, but people who are really struggling with the lockout, they really need to build that whole lateral and medial head up a lot, right? They may not be as worried about the long head. Whereas the extensions tend to really, really build that long head. They give you that beefy looking tricep. But, all tricep exercises do work the long head. And I think when we're talking about these things, we have to keep that in perspective, right? We have to have that in perspective. All tricep exercises do build all three heads. It's just having a slight bias. But the thing is, when we look at the JM press, is that just that strength and movement pattern carryover. So it's not just a hypertrophy exercise. It trains us to really use a big multi-joint exercise, for the purpose of locking the bench press. Now, a lot of people will say, well, can't we use partials for that? Can't we use board work, boards with chains? And while I agree that from a movement pattern perspective and a neural drive perspective, those things work very, very well, they also beat us up. They're very hard on recovery. The stimulus to fatigue is not there, plus we don't really get any sort of stretch position. We really don't. We don't get that lengthened position to build overall size. Now, the reason I like the multi-joint is when you look at studies that are out there, they tend to find that multi-joint movements do give us the best strength carryover separate from the hypertrophy. And I think that's a big point here, right? That's a big selling point for the JM press, right? Because we don't always get that with the smaller movements. They might thicken us up, and in the long term, done for months and months and months or years, bigger triceps will always help your bench, okay? A big muscle always has more strength potential, but we do kind of lack the intramuscular and extramuscular coordination we get from a multi-joint exercise. All right, the JM press fits that bill. There's better coordination involved to go with the hypertrophy. And when it comes to a hypertrophy perspective, I think we do get a better size from it than we would get from some of those partial movements and things that we do, again, board work and stuff like that, right? We will get more hypertrophy. So if we're looking at kind of a long term, are we balancing that neural drive with the hypertrophy? Okay. Because failing that, then what do people end up doing? They end up needing to do a bunch of extensions on top of their board work and everything to get the size to go with it, right? To get that extra size. Whereas then again, the JM press takes us through a much longer range of motion, right? It can take the tricep through a full range of motion. not just give us the lockout. And I think people notice this. Perfect example, go do extensions for a while, and if your other lifts, if you're a really advanced lifter, and you add a new type of extension in, like a skull crusher, and you get 15-20% stronger on it over months, your bench is barely going to budge. It really will, unless it is going up from all your other bench work. You may not really see much carryover. Take a JM press, and if you've been sticking or slowing anywhere near the top half, anything past the midpoint is where you stick, and you really focus on JM presses and even get stronger at your 10 rep sets, significantly stronger, you'll usually break through a bench plateau, right? You will usually do so. And I think that's what it comes down to is that fact that it's a big sledgehammer. We get all of that coordination because of it being a multi-joint exercise while still getting great hypertrophy, particularly with a focus in the heads that carry over to the bench the most, right? The ones that even the bench press tends to grow. It just lets us kind of double down on that. So it really is the exercise that we want for tricep specialization. Because there's a difference. We're always going to do tricep work. I'm always going to program tricep work for all of my lifters, even if they bench. And I think most strength coaches do, but it's not always tricep specialization. Doing some skull crushers is not tricep specialization. It's just building the tricep completely. It's just focusing on overall development, right? It's not a specialization for, hey, we really need tricep carryover to lock our bench, to follow through on that bench. The JM press is what I like to use for tricep specialization, right, for lifters who do struggle there. And I find that for me, if I really work in and push JM presses for a while, if I've had a bench that I've been stuck at, it does tend to help. And I've used it to PR on both closed grip bench and my wider grip, pinkies on the rings bench. So I tend to be a big fan of it, just because it brings a lot of the best of both worlds in. Right? We get the benefit of it being a nice full range of motion tricep exercise, so we get good hypertrophy from it, but we also get good neural drive. Now, I will say that you do need pretty tough elbows to do it, right? You need good elbow health, you need good tendon health to do this exercise. So oftentimes, even if I'm going to give this lift to a lifter, I may have them do a phase of high rep band training to make sure that their tendons are healthy, to make sure that their elbows are healthy. Because, we can really stack a lot of weight on this movement. Look how much Michelle's doing there. That's 85 pounds. She's doing a long range of motion on that. We need healthy tendons to pull that off. But if we have healthy tendons, I think, again, it can just really be a sledgehammer for the bench press. All right, guys, but that's really all I have to say on that today. I hope it's been informative, and I'll talk to you guys next time.